Penguin Random House Audio presents The Kickass Single Mom. Be financially independent, find your sexiest self, and raise fabulous, happy children. This is the author, Emma Johnson. For Helena and Lucas, may you always have the freedom and courage to create the family you want and need. Introduction. 10 years ago, when I was married but not yet a mom, I attended a day-long book proposal workshop that required students to bring a 2-page summary. My book proposal was about single motherhood. At the time, I was thinking about becoming a mother and reflecting on my own experience being raised by a single mom. I was also curious about how the divorce surge of the 1970s and 80s played out in our society, how that shaped my generation of kids and the decisions we were making as we became adults. After all, I was adamant I would never become a single mom. I would do better, get married before getting pregnant, and stay married. I'd do things the right way. My interest in single motherhood was 1 part personal, 2 parts journalistic. The idea was nice, said the workshop leader. He smiled and was kind. Like many projects I've considered throughout my life, after the workshop, I parked this one in a digital file on my hard drive and forgot about it. Fast forward a few short years, and my interest in single motherhood was reignited. This time, it was 0 parts journalistic, 1,000 parts full-on personal. Despite every single proclamation to the contrary, I found myself as a single mom. For a long time, I was alternately livid, confused, overwhelmed, accepting, and thrilling in that role, a process that I would have seen countless women go through in my work, which is now committed to the empowerment of single mothers. My story is unique. Yours is too. Women come to the role of unmarried motherhood by way of divorce, breakup, incarceration, death of the other parent, unexpected pregnancy, and increasingly, by choice. Life as a single mother runs the rainbow too. Maybe you have a beautiful co-parenting relationship with your ex, who lives a few blocks away and whom you consider your best friend, and you often go for mani-pedis with his new wife. Or, more statistically likely, your child's father is barely in the picture, or not at all. Perhaps you were the one who chose to leave a more or less decent relationship because you just weren't happy, or maybe your partner stunned you, and your family and friends, by admitting to having another family. Perhaps relations are amicable, or maybe you do weekend switch-off at the police station, owning to a restraining order or 2. Your journey may involve abuse, addiction, mental illness, or an insane court battle. If you were in a relatively happy relationship with your child's dad, there are also likely great memories of time together, shared hope, and plans for a future. Maybe you swore you never wanted kids, but found yourself pregnant and really happy about it, or not, and that is okay. Maybe you always dreamed of that great guy, the 4-bedroom house, the dog, 2 kids, and the 2-parent family vacations and holidays, but now you're doing it solo in a 1-bedroom apartment. We all have one thing in common. Plan A didn't work out. Single moms tend to have a lot more in common too. Money stresses, gut-wrenching loneliness, overwhelm, social isolation, feeling of shame for not giving our kids a perfect family, family pressure to remarry yesterday, no readily available sexual outlet, fear of messing up our kids, fear of never finding romantic love again. In this book, I share my own journey, as well as that of other women who have embraced their single motherhood on their own terms. This is a book of lessons on contending with the fact that sometimes in life, your plan A does not work out. But plan B, or maybe plan C, D, Q, Z, can be really surprisingly, stunningly amazing. My plan A was looking pretty decent. So much so that in the spring of 2009, a thought flitted through my mind. Everything is so good, what could go wrong? After all, my life seemed exactly as, well, no, better than, I had dreamed it would be when I was growing up in the small Illinois town of Sycamore, raised by a smart and capable but stressed out poor single mom of 3. Now, at the age of 32, I was living my dream of being a writer in New York City. My ambitious, creative husband and I were drunk on adoration for our year-old daughter, brimming with plans for our family's future. Friends have since told me that from the outside, it all looked wonderful, and in many very real ways, it was. We had bought and remodeled a lovely large pre-war apartment. We traveled the globe. We threw dinner parties. We saved for retirement and college. We signed up for Mommy and Me music classes, and we hung a vintage mid-century mobile above our daughter's crib. I discovered that I had married the type of guy who would get up in the night with a baby and change endless diapers. Both my husband and I grew up in divorced families, raised by single moms. We both vowed to give our daughter more. We were doing it. We were winning. I was winning. In so many ways, it was wonderful. But then a call came. I was at a writers' conference in Manhattan. The general number from the news network where my husband was a photographer was familiar. There were 4 missed calls. My husband was not in town. He was in Greece on assignment. There was an accident, my husband's boss said when I finally got through. He fell off a cliff. They are trying to get him on an airplane to Athens. You need to get on a plane and go there now. The words did not fully register, but I understood it was bad. It was. My daughter, then 14 months, and I rushed to JFK Airport and begged the gate attendant to open the closed plane doors so we could board the next flight to Athens. The next weeks were a blur of trying to be there for my husband and understand the severity of his brain injury, navigating the public hospital, and caring for my young daughter. My husband had fallen 15 feet off a cliff while setting up satellite equipment. Because of the remote location, he had gone hours and hours without proper medical care. By all measures, it appeared that his case was miraculous. The surgeon took me aside and showed me the x-rays. "See here, this butterfly-shaped mark," he said, pointing me to the central point of my husband's gray matter. "See how far to the left it is in the picture? That shows how inflamed his brain was when he arrived. This is a very severe injury." On one hand, that severity registered. After being put into a medically induced coma intended to allow his brain to rest and heal, my husband spent days raging into consciousness. He had to be restrained to the bed, which only set him off into further fits of violent anger aimed at freeing himself from the hospital. In the public Greek hospital, I found that the care I assumed a nurse would provide, constant attention, bathing, food, was expected of the family or a nurse paid privately. For days on end, his sister and I took the exhausting charge of physically handling a violent man desperately clawing his way out of a coma and brain injury. Despite this, my husband awoke from surgery able to speak, walk, and move without any overt impairment. The contrast between his recovery and the severity of the injury was so great, the surgeon brought around his colleagues to show off the wonder. In 3 months, he'll be back to work, and in a year, he'll be back to normal, the handsome, gallant Greek doctor said. As my husband fought through the post-trauma blur of brain injury and regained his faculties, I saw a man who looked and smelled like my husband. His voice and most of his mannerisms were indeed those I'd known and loved for years. But the person I'd married was not there. Not all the way there. I could not articulate it, but I could feel it in the marrow of my bones. One day at the hospital, my husband's father arrived from his home on Crete to visit for the day. His dad made a comment, something that would have irritated my husband, something that we would have laughed about later in that deep understanding between two people who have known and loved each other for years. I looked at my husband, tried to catch his eye to share our inside joke, something that would have come so easily, so comfortably, and organically a few days before. I could not. His eyes were fixed on his dad, earnestly laughing along with my father-in-law. I could not connect with him. I panicked on a deep, visceral, female level. When I got back to the apartment where my baby daughter and I were staying,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?